What I want to talk about today is, I mean, it's actually like you've been the perfect self-expression of what I wanted to talk about because it is around connection in the sense that, we come to this kind of a platform, and I think what's happening is that we're kind of having this learning curve about what's actually possible in this platform. That there's this assumption that it's somehow going to be less valuable or less connecting than face to face, because that's what we're used to. And again, our unconscious mind wants us to continue doing stuff that we're used to doing, that we're familiar with. It makes that really right. So the moment you get onto a virtual platform and share from your heart, why it takes courage for you to do that, Shahila, is because it's your unconscious mind would go, Shahila, you are not sharing all that stuff with all these people in a virtual digital platform that could be, uh, for you to do something so outside the box takes courage for that reason. It's trying to keep you exactly where you are. So connection happens when you do stuff like you just did. Like, I already feel so much more connection in this video thing that we're doing than I did last week, because connection gets created. First of all, connection is so profoundly important to us at this stage. It has a massive impact on our physical well-being as well as our mental well-being. So physically, it's actually kind of extraordinary, the impact of low social connection on us physically. So the research says that people who have low social connection have more anxiety, they're more depressed, they get more violent. Even at, like, on a physical cellular level, we have more inflammation when we have low connection. And we are all, seriously, the world is at risk of having low social connection right now. What's cool is that you can create it in contexts like this, depending on how you engage in these things. So the flip side, high social connection has us not only feel happier, have less anxiety, less depression, but physically, we actually have a 50% increase in how quickly we recover from things. Our immunity goes up. It's the number one reason why people seek therapy in the world is for loneliness. So what's tricky, though, is how to, like, given this new context, how do we create connection in new ways and new platforms where we have zero experience? We've got no experience doing it like this. So Shahila, you are like literally the case in point in how to do it. Because it doesn't matter whether you're in a physical room. It doesn't matter how many friends you have. It's about the quality of the experience that you have. And that isn't determined by the outside world. I mean, this is a great platform and it's a room full of amazing people, but the experience of connection that each one of us in this call will have is what we give to it, what we contribute. The moment you share something, that's when you experience the connection. So Shahila, I mean, what you've done is to really, I mean, it's set a very high bar and perhaps an intimidating bar. But what you did was you shared from your heart about your life, which is amazing. One of the things one of the things I noticed today, I was like thinking about the idea of social connection and social media. And so we have this kind of belief that when we get into social media, we're connecting, and it's potentially not that. I think it's possible to connect in social media, and I think there are ways to use it that does create connection. But I think the standard way of using social media is a lot of times, well, the research shows that we actually, when we go to our Facebook page or our Instagram page and we see a little like or we see a love heart, we actually get a shot of dopamine. Like, we get a little hit of dopamine, makes us feel really good, makes us feel connected. And there's so much research that says that actually becomes addictive to people. They have the experience of having their need for connection met by those little shots of dopamine, but they're all surface level connections. So Mark Zuckerberg actually had to go to a congressional trial in 2018 where they were suspecting that he was using researchers and consulting firms to design social media that would create this kind of what do they call it? They call it a feedback loop, like a positive feedback loop where you get a shot of dopamine and that makes you want to stay on. And so they figure out ways for you to get for the feedback to be more and more getting likes. And it ends up being a very shallow, very surface level way of connecting. So one way to think about what this, I'm thinking a lot about how this, this situation that we're all in, it's kind of forcing us to do things differently. Like I had a client a few days ago who actually confessed to me that she was dreading our Zoom session because it just sounded like a nightmare, right? To be on a Zoom session for 3 hours with another person. And it actually flipped, like it totally flipped in, and she found it great in the end. But it's like, it's those learning curves that we're kind of getting used to in a very slow way. So one of the opportunities, actually, Adrian and I had a great conversation today too, and I'd like to extend this a bit, maybe if we have time, but the fact that, you know, this is, anytime we're in a situation like this where things are just so different or so unprecedented, there will be opportunities that are available. Sometimes we get so very stuck in like the problems that arise out of it that we don't see the opportunities. But in 10 years time, when we look back on coronavirus, we're going to say, well, that's when that got created. That's when that got invented. That's when we started doing this. That's when this happened. And it'll be really clear to us in hindsight what the opportunities were at the time. I think one of the opportunities for connection in this time is to set up new habits around how we connect with people. So like an example for me is when I moved to Australia, I didn't really talk to my family very much. Like it was kind of when email started. So that was kind of the new thing, but there wasn't really the Facebook thing or social media or like video chats and that kind of stuff. And I really created a habit of not really being that in touch with them, which was really sad for me, but I didn't really know how to fix it. My mom is like she just does not like to be on the phone. She's got a real thing about the phone. And so every time I'd call her, I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry for calling, Mom. And she'd laugh, but it just wasn't her thing. So I didn't do that much. And then I had to be intentional about saying, look, the kind of connection I want to have with my parents is one where we're talking, we're communicating, where she doesn't love the phone, but I've got to get in the habit of picking up the phone and making the phone call. And that took me from a habit of not calling my parents to a habit of calling my parents, which was clunky at first, didn't feel right. My unconscious mind wants to keep me where I am and doing the same patterns that I've always done. But now it's actually my new habit. It's my new autopilot. So I reach out and I call them all the time. And in fact, my mom called me like a month ago. I was like gobsmacked. So this time that we're in now is an opportunity to do two things. One, when we're engaging in a platform like this, to bring something, to bring vulnerability, to bring sharing from your own experience, to think about this platform as an opportunity to connect in a real way. And you'll be able to tell when you feel like you've connected in a real way. That's where you'll get not just a shot of dopamine, but you'll have that experience of real connection. And to get in the habit and maybe set some habits of calling friends, of picking up the phone and calling and having a conversation, like having a real conversation where you say, talk about what you've done, what you do if you were face to face, calling relatives, parents, uncles, aunties, and really being intentional about doing that. It's clunky at first. Anytime we start a new habit of any sort and we go outside of our normal routine and habits, it feels really clunky.